You should not be manipulated by the state with putting pressure you on your bank account. And this is something what unfortunately CBDC is giving to to any state, and it's always kind of provocation for every person who is in power to abuse power and make you basically the next slave. And none of us wants to be a slave, right? So to speak in really like primitive, really simple language, CBDC is pushing us in a time of slavery, where we completely dependent of someone's will and someone's emotion or someone's view how they want to shape this world. If you want to be independent people who shape in our lives, we need to have a tool, financial tool like Bitcoin, but on which you cannot put pressure, and no one is staying behind it. But all of us waiting to maintain and to basically put in force this real democracy. And this is not just words, it's just real lives. And because I'm defending people who is, really suffering, who is victims of political persecution, who are victims of torture or political killings or something of some kind of these abuses. And I'm also myself was a person who was under huge political pressure. I think this instrument is extremely vital, and we need to unite our forces to defend it, to have legitimate way how to use it, and not to put in force, and to make awareness, educate as much as possible people about CBDCs, how it's harmful for all of us.
Hello guys, welcome once again to Bitcoiner, the podcast for Bitcoiners. And today we have the great pleasure to have Lyudmyla. She's the CEO of Open Dialogue Foundation, and here's now in our podcast to share her thoughts and talk about her experience, her rabbit hole journey on Bitcoin, and about her foundation. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your time and welcome.
Thank you so much. And everyone, hello. I'm happy to speak to you at least virtually. Please leave your questions after our video podcast, and I'm happy to reply for them. So I'm a human rights defender from Ukraine. I'm leading a human rights organization working in many countries. We don't work with your countries, but we defend human rights in really the hottest points. For example, in Ukraine. For example, also we support civil society in political prisons in Russia, in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, many countries, in Turkey also. And for many years, for us, it was quite unclear why and how we can defend our financial rights, particularly when regimes try to limit any kind of your attempt to defend your money. And the first things what normally every regime is doing, they try to smear you, so destroy your name, destroy your family, and destroy your financial capacity to survive, to fight, and to maintain your activity. So for us, Bitcoin became a financial tool how to basically be able to carry human rights in authoritarian regimes, and for me personally, even in European countries, because in my specific case, three states like Kazakhstan, Russia, Poland, and during Plahotniuk's time, Moldova, they cooperate together in order to deprive me the right to have bank account in my organization in Belgium. And they used anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism regulation as a transnational tool for repression. Transnational, it means that you can use it whenever you are, if you are a dictator, and you don't have any capacity as individual or organization, human rights organization, to defend yourself, because there is no provision, no legal ground how to defend yourself. So my organization is working with regulators in EU countries to establish the right for individuals to protect them, not only on the EU soil, but also far beyond on even authoritarian states with these legal provisions. So it's very short, but for you, like background, what we are doing and why we started to use Bitcoin.
Okay, perfect. And we're going to go deep and dive it, but before that, can you share a little bit about your background, like where you're from, what do you study for our audience, so people can know you a little bit?
Sure. So I came from Ukraine, from Sevastopol. This is occupied territory of Crimea by Russian Federation for the moment. I had quite difficult childhood, and this is the reason why I became human rights defenders, because I had to defend myself, my family members, and people around me who wanted to use Ukrainian language, who just were identified with Ukrainian community at that time, even in Sevastopol, and those who were fighting with corruption, who didn't want to be under authoritarian regime at that time on Kuchma, and then Yanukovych, with two presidents who basically violate systematically human rights. And for this human rights activity, me and also my family members, my friends were persecuted. And of course, it was natural that we started to defend our rights. And of course, for me, understand that I have to take care about also my financial rights also comes from all of this childhood experience. And this is the reason why I also established foundation. I was invited after being quite active participant and translator during Orange Revolution in Ukraine, then Euromaidan. I was organizing humanitarian aid together with my organization, both for Kyiv, but also for other regions. We supported refugees in Poland coming from Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, since the early days of Russian invasion to Crimea. We provided protective equipment as organization, fundraising for these purposes with its first traditional financial instruments like, GoFundMe and others. But then we found out that you can be basically deprived to have a right to fundraise if you associate it with so-called military conflict zone. And this is something what we also try to change because, and this is the reason why we also started to work extensively and fundraise for really massive scale in Bitcoin and Tether USDT, because this is the only how you can operate 24 hours per 7. You can do cheap transactions immediately and buy very needed protective and medical equipment to deliver it to every point of Ukraine until it was occupied. The territories until they are occupied by Russians. And this is something what you can do even if financial traditional system is completely paralyzed since early days of Russian invasion to Ukraine. And even now Ukrainian government, it's one of the biggest case study when it used cryptocurrencies, particularly Bitcoin and stable coins, to buy medical stuff, weapon even. So for the moment, Ukraine is the third place of adoption of cryptocurrencies. Of course, we can discuss the issue, how it's difficult anyways because of regulation and some, point of views of some concrete people in the government on the crypto. But generally, Ukrainians really understand the value because it became one of the saving tools, rescue tools for many of us since early days of Russian invasion first to an occupation in Crimea in 2014, and especially now since last year when full Russian invasion happened to Ukraine.
Wow, yeah, actually that's really amazing and impactful because there are different ways that Bitcoin is working in societies, because for example it was made like a legal tender but basically in small steps, but in the case of Ukraine it was more like it was used for its own purpose, right? Bitcoin is used for a way to use it like a decentralization, that no government is involved, there's no central bank. So basically, I don't know if the word is, it was like not imposed, but you had to use it because it was necessary, right? So
you have no other choice. You literally when we started to fundraise for Patronate, our account was immediately frozen We moved to, GoFundMe. Again, it's frozen. But at the same time, it's huge discrimination because biggest organization, biggest, for example, UN agencies, our biggest NGOs, they were allowed to fundraise on this platform. And we, as a small organization, we were not allowed. So we were capable to, for example, for the moment, fundraise up to 7 million euro and deliver 71,000 of protective equipment to Ukraine since last year, because we were capable to transact thanks to Bitcoin and stable coins like Tether. So without it, it wouldn't be possible. Just we would not have instruments for doing so, And many other Ukrainians the same. This is a huge problem. And in fact, this was the only tool for us to use. And I just want to mention, because just recently, unfortunately, Ukrainian government took really, for us, uncomfortable and really not really understandable move, because they, with the pretext to fight with money laundering, with gaming, with betting, they deprived the rights for exchanges, cryptocurrency exchanges, to cooperate with banks, because banks participated, six main banks of Ukraine, together with National Bank of Ukraine, participating in different kind of corruption schemes, and they just switch off also exchanges from our banking system. And of course, it's extremely affect the work of volunteers, of human defenders, those who fundraising in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So it's sometimes you've got decision from the state and you don't understand the logic. Honestly, it's even mystery for us. We try to do something with this, but it's so far becoming very difficult.
So basically, I always ask to my guest how was their rabbit hole journey, but I think yours, if you can share how was your rabbit hole journey, but I think yours was really particular that use it in the real world and know more. I think you had to use it, and at the same time get education about it, right? Like immediately. Or how was your rabbit hole journey?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. One more issue why I had to use it. It was also because, as I said, a few states were involved in persecution, political persecution against me, because of my human rights activity and also my organization. So at some point, was at least 4 states. It was Kazakhstan, Russia, Moldova during Black News times, and Poland, unfortunately, where you can see that from one side it's a democratic country in the EU. From other side, it's actually started to violate human rights and rule of law since 2017, where was massive protests. And also this is a year when our organization participated in this protest, and I'm Ukrainian, living in Poland for more than 10 years. And after participating in this protest and speaking in defense of rule of law and judges, independent judges in Poland, Polish authorities started to attack me. They called me a threat to national security. They started to huge smear campaign against me and my organization. And all of this affect that at some point, because we defended our name and rights on courts and also international platform, we speak about our persecution and persecution of such organizations like us, women rights organizations, LGBT rights, judges, prosecutors, lawyers in European Parliament, Parliament Assembly of Council of Europe, many international institutions. And Poland wanted to stop me doing so. So they announced me as a threat to national security and placed me in Schengen Information System list ban as only terrorists placed there with no legal ground. And this is the reason why I was deported at 2018 for 3 weeks from Belgium to Ukraine. Then, of course, I make this case as much as possible loud, expose this violation of financial, basically all tools. There was financial institutions, there was criminal institutions and procedures, anti-terrorist legislation. So all possible legislations were violated on my case, and my case became like a case study to reform Schengen Information System, so no one after from foreigners would be a victim of this kind of persecution. And I won all possible, courts, even against Deputy Minister of Special Services in Poland. So imagine foreigner. in a European country, which is accused with all of this fake accusation, money laundering agent, threat to national security, and then you want this kind of courts with all top officials, even deputy minister of special services, like who can be like more so-called intelligence, right?
Yeah.
He has to apologize to me, my family, and organization, but at the same time, you have no remedy how to defend your financial instruments, because there is no legal provision, no article in the law which allows me to restore my bank account.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I'm in European Parliament, and there is, a lot of people exactly in the place where I am now. So, and this, of course, affected a lot of me, my organization, the people around me, and this moved also me to work with regulators how to change this situation. And now we work with members of European Parliament, with members of Parliament Assembly of Council of Europe, how to find actually improvement in the regulation, so we can have the right for bank account. But to survive during this time, until I find this, legal provision and this rule will be established, I use Bitcoin. Otherwise, I would not be able to survive. Just literally, I'm in Brussels, in really a very heart of EU, right? So you see European Parliament, flags, everything. But I'm deprived to have right for bank account, and my organization is persecuted for political ground. And this is how you can find another use of Bitcoin, and when it becomes your basically rescue, the last rescue you can use to survive.
And can you give us some? You mentioned some examples that you were working on in different countries, but right now, maybe in the last year, especially in the current situation that is happening in Ukraine, can you give us like what is the role in with Bitcoin and the Ukrainians, and to escape from the role of government oppressions and censorships, and how Bitcoin could be a tool to help people to establish a new life in different places, or escaping for what's going on right now?
So we need to clarify that Ukrainians not escaping Ukrainian government from Ukraine, but from Russian military aggression, right? Russian invasion. So this is the first thing. This is really important because Russia is committing war crime. They're destroying our houses. It's killing people, children, particular women. Destroying our hospital, electricity, everything basically, and it's happening right now when we're talking to you. And in all this situation, the only way how you can actually secure your funds, if you were capable to do it in advance, it's to move from occupied territory with having your funds in your wallets. And remember this code, how to secure it. Because, of course, these Russian militaries, they check in the buses. You basically move with what you're capable to move with you. You cannot take something more. You're not able to move anything, right, from your house with all of these conditions. And another thing that you never know what kind of banks, what kind of institutions, houses are going to be destroyed the next day. So you basically cannot rely sometimes, unfortunately, for traditional financial system, because it cannot not exist tomorrow in the way you understand it. You don't have documents. You don't have, access to these financial institutions you used to have, and this affects you, of course, immediately. And again, if you move from Ukraine to, for example, Poland or to other countries, and we have the biggest relocation point in Poland. From Ukraine, where we assist refugees afterwards to be relocated to other countries. And most of them are asking us also how we can do it in secure way until the moment we open bank account, or they experience to have a problem because, for example, they assumed by financial institution being a risk client just because they were born, like me, I was born in right? So it's occupied territory of Ukraine for the moment by Russian Federation. And everyone who is coming from this territory by traditional financial system in Europe would be assumed risk client. So I can be deprived the right to have a bank account just because I was born in Sevastopol. And the same problem with Belarus, the same problem with many, many others. And of course, sometimes if you don't want to lose your right to have bank account, you use Bitcoin as a bank of last resort. And in many countries in EU, you don't have this clear regulation which gives you the right for bank of last resort. And Bitcoin became this bank of last resort. But with upcoming regulation in Europe, and because crypto is going to be regulated, crypto assets, like European institutions call it, is going to be regulated the same as traditional financial system, we work closely with regulators to exclude overregulation. And we call everyone to join in our efforts, because we need to explain that specifically for, authoritarian states or, like unstable societies where you don't know what's happening tomorrow because of military conflict or maybe disaster or something. You need to have tools which would be always in hand, where you cannot use even cash, because it can be also destroyed, or you cannot just carry it for security reason. And in this situation, again, Bitcoin and stable coins is the only way how you can survive and how you can transfer your value from unsafe territory to safe territory. And again, we need to have a regulation which allows you to do so in a transparent way, not to be in a gray zone. I know that a lot of Bitcoiners and basically crypto community representatives, they don't want to work with regulators in any country, but at the same time, I think because we pay taxes, because we shape our future, we need to enforce them to implement what we as electors and those people who vote for them, as those people who pay taxes and their salaries are based on our taxes. They implement recommendations, not just like we exist and just, protest and doesn't have what we want to have, So this is my particular position.
Okay, and what are your thoughts about the CBDCs and everything that they're trying to implement, not just here in Europe, but also in the United States and basically in every government? What are your thoughts about it?
Fail. I'm pretty sure, because, it shows also you cannot force people, but people have to first understand what is a CBDC, because
can you explain
unfortunately not many
people or your thoughts.
So I will try to do it as simple as possible. I don't want to play any kind of financial expert, and I'm just human defender. So I will explain in my simple words as human defender why I'm afraid CBDC, because for me, it's one more step to make us closer to concentration camp like in China. And we see how China is using it. China is forcing people to spend money. China is forcing people to afraid if their money are frozen just because of their bad experience or bad behavior. You should not be manipulated by the state with putting pressure you on your bank account. And this is something what unfortunately CBDC is giving to to any state, and it's always kind of provocation for every person who is in power to abuse power and make you basically the next slave. And none of us wants to be a slave, right? So to speak in really like primitive, really simple language, CBDC is pushing us in a time of slavery, where we completely dependent of someone's will and someone's emotion or someone's view how they want to shape this world. If you want to be independent people who shape in our lives, we need to have a tool, financial tool like Bitcoin, but on which you cannot put pressure, and no one is staying behind it, but all of us waiting to maintain and to basically put in force this real democracy. And this is not just words, it's just real lives. And because I'm defending people who is, really suffering, who is victims of political persecution, who are victims of torture or political killings or something of some kind of these abuses. And I'm also myself was a person who was under huge political pressure. I think this instrument is extremely, extremely vital, and we need to unite our forces to defend it, to have legitimate way how to use it, and not to put in force, and to make awareness, educate as much as possible people about CBDCs, how it's harmful for all of us.
Actually, you explained it quite well, because that's actually what CBDCs are. So yeah, and and so you also mentioned that about the regulations. So what do you think are the main challenges, right, especially right now especially in the areas that you're working on, in the terms of Bitcoin regulations and compliances?
So for the moment, what we see from the regulation, upcoming regulation, that the main idea is to put in a gray zone, or just like make really discriminatory rules for crypto assets, such like Bitcoin or stable coins. So this is the reason why we really need to explain case studies. What does it mean? How we use crypto assets for good purposes. For example, we as human defenders, we explain how we use it for human rights in particular countries. Why we cannot use traditional financial system. And there, for example, my colleagues from Belarus or from Russia, or Turkey, for example, they explained that traditional financial system, once there was massive crowdfunding to support political refugees, lawyers, and family members of political prisoners in Belarus, it's donation from over 60,000 people, and they did it through Facebook, Patronate, and other platforms. And banks receive this data from this platform and gave it to authorities. And every single person from all of these 6 been accused of financing extremism and terrorism, movements, which is absolutely fake accusation, because this is just peaceful people protesting on the streets to have a rule of law and human rights in their country. And this is one of the bright example where traditional financial system doesn't work. It just completely doesn't work. You cannot secure anyone's right in any financial data with current traditional financial system, where dictators has full access to your banking account and can basically destroy everyone who's supporting you, everyone who is working you, your family members, because they know how you move, where you move, what you buy, from where your sources, and how you spend them, And this is extremely, extremely difficult. If you want to change this narrative, you need to explain case studies as much as possible and unite your forces. So both people from industry, both people from those who end users. I call myself end user because I use Bitcoin and stable coins for basically maintain my human rights activity and even personal life. So if you join these forces, we capable to win, to stop this CBDC fight and to have our financial instruments defended.
Actually, you mentioned that you use it, basically in your daily basis, but how do you approach to all the, in every country that you are helping, how do you approach to people to use Bitcoin? Because the first time when you mention Bitcoin or stable coins, they're not confident about it, because basically there's a few or zero knowledge, because it's too soon, right? Even in my country, it's like when they passed the law, most of them didn't know about Bitcoin, and right now that's why people from another country are going to El Salvador to make foundations to educate people. So how do you make the approach, and how do you help them and to make that barrier disappear?
So there are two mainly, I say, kind of reason why people start to use Bitcoin and why they don't use to start Bitcoin, right? First, why you don't use Bitcoin? Because you have privilege. You are kind of belong to limited population of the earth that has access to traditional financial system, and anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism regulation, or any kind of abuse of this regulation never touch you. So you don't have problems with bank account. You don't need to have any other alternative way how to spend your money or how to keep your value, right? And another way, you were living in unsecure environment. For example, you are from Syria, you are from Turkey, where it's just natural disaster happens, or you're in Ukraine, where basically your neighbor state became invasion and destroy and bombing your cities, your streets, and killing people around you. And you need to find solution where traditional financial system doesn't work. Or for example, you're a human defender in the heart of Brussels, and you don't have bank account because you are attacked with a transnational tool for oppression. And of course, you don't have this privilege anymore, have access for traditional financial system. And this is the way how you start to looking for alternative. And you discover yourself for Bitcoin, because this is the only actually tool which is, of course, it can be improved. And I know a lot of developers are working to make it more easier to use, more convenient, right? But at the end of the day, you have choice. You just don't have means to survive. You don't have any you don't have financial instrument to keep your value, or you just have alternative which is give you this right, And this is the reason why I normally capable to speak with people in authoritarian states, because everyone from opposition, every human rights defenders, they asking me how I can protect myself. How can I'm accused. I'm a human rights defender, and my family members deprived the right to have a bank account. What we can do, how we can communicate if a financial institution is blocking our fundraising campaign in 5 minutes, So, and in this situation, you have the only tool which is not able to be manipulated with the government. It's Bitcoin. That's it. It's easy. So people need to understand. People need to be in need. And this is the main motivation how they involve in Bitcoin. You can't force someone to be in. It has to be understanding that there is a problem and I need to solve this problem. But you can educate people, and if they have, for example, capacity to choose, and they know the privilege which gives them, for example, for Bitcoin, and what weakness of traditional financial system, they will do right choice. But again, education is key here.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you think the Bitcoin is changing the way people think about trust and transparency, especially in digital access, beyond just financial transactions?
This is something, I'm not an expert on this kind of stuff, honestly. And this is something I'm learning because from one side, I know that you can track every transaction. From other side, for the moment, authoritarian state cannot put pressure on Bitcoin to stop transacting. In my case, the most important to be able to transact, not like to hide something, but transact. In all people around me, their problem that regimes doesn't allow them to keep value and to transact. They don't do any kind of activity they have to hide, right? But they need to have a right to have a bank account. Bank account, bank of last resort like Bitcoin, right? And being able to transact and be able to kind of not expose, for example, who donate their money and where they spend it. And for the moment, with all activities we were capable to, once we started to use Bitcoin, and the same with my colleagues in Belarus, in Russia, and other states. So far, so good. We don't know how it's going to be after, because technology is changing, capacity of the regimes, and their, enormous amount of sources to develop new tools, how to civils around us, to make surveillance developing. So we don't know how it's going to be in the future, but so far, so good.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because exactly, is the approach are different in the situation in every country. It's like way different, because in my case, I believe and I think, and from so far from what I know, in El Salvador, it was made legal tender because most Salvadorians didn't have access to a bank account, and Bitcoin can give you that for with a wallet, you know. So that's why people got with our wallet immediate access to banking services, to bank services. So, and how do you?
But I wanted to say it's really important that it's come from grassroots. So people should understand that they need it. You cannot put pressure on them to use it. Otherwise, they will assume it's something, you know, like enforced. So it's really, really important that education and understanding that you need it to use, or how you can use it. It should be before they kind of propose to do so.
Yeah, and how do you see because well, in different regions, but especially here in Europe, because we're in Europe right now, how do you see, especially now that you're very involved, the Bitcoin adoption in the near future, maybe 5 years, 10 years? How do you see that?
I think it's hard to predict, but with the upcoming CBDC, more and more people will understand that they don't have other choice, at least for the moment. Maybe someone will invent even more, something better, I mean, beautiful and more effective than Bitcoin. We never knows. I would love to, but so far so good. We have this But funny story that the Nobel Prize person economist who was always saying that if you don't deal with drugs, if you don't deal with money laundering and extremism, you would never be blocked by traditional financial system. Just recently, 2 days ago, he experienced by himself a problem with this, false positive of anti-money laundering, counterterrorism regulation, and his financial instrument was blocked. So everyone around him said, okay, this is the time you need to consider to use Bitcoin, so you understand why it's so important for ordinary people and those who doesn't have this kind of privileges like you to use this traditional financial system. And I think it's a right example of what we are going to face in the future. More and more people, if regulation is not fixed, are going to be just in isolation, deprived of the right to have and hold a bank account, maintain their financial capacities. And this is a moment when everyone will start to ask questions what I can do instead. From one side. From other side, people really, in a time like now when you don't know what's going to be the next, where the war is going to expand, you think about future, you think how to secure your future, and you cannot just trust building, you can't just trust someone's words, you prefer to trust something what you do self-custody. And I think self-custody wallets is our future, when we have responsibility for our funds and when we have responsibility for our future and for our financial instruments. And this is something what Bitcoin can share. This is something which can be as a case study to learn from actually Bitcoin community.
Okay, yeah, I agree totally. And what are you currently right now working on, something that you can share with all of us about the Open Dialogue Foundation? What are you currently working right now with that?
As I said, we work in we can say we work on 3 main dimensions for the moment. First dimension, of course, 70% of our all attention is about Ukraine and to support Ukraine. First of all, those who defend not only Ukrainian territory, because we defend actually the entire European world. If Russia succeed to completely occupy Ukraine, they will move further. They will move to other European countries, and this is the reality of where we are. So this is the first issue, and for this reason, for example, we also expose how authoritarian regimes are using sanctions, avoiding sanctions. Like, for example, you see the report I have with me in the European Parliament, and it says like Kremlin secrets ally, how Kazakhstan, Tokayev has helped Putin to circumvent sanctions. You know that most of regulators speak that crypto assets are used to evade sanctions. This is absolutely bullshit. And then again, we expose it because we say you have the whole dictatorial states with the central banks, which actually helps Russia for billions dollars. to evade, circumvent sanctions. And this is reality. There is no way that with the hundreds of billions of dollars, anyone will do something in crypto industry, because it's not this market cap. It just there is no capacity even for this, for the moment, for these instruments to be used in this kind of way. So of course we expose this kind. Then we work extensively to have normal instruments, both in traditional financial system, but also with crypto assets regulation in Europe. And we also work with human rights in countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Poland, where Russia, also Belarus, where we support civil society activists, opposition leaders, human defenders, journalists, bloggers, who basically doing their homework. And again, they need this kind of financial tool like Bitcoin to be able to maintain their activities on the ground. Otherwise, they would not have means at all to survive and to maintain what they are doing. So this is our priorities for the moment, and how we move for what we fundraise, for what we also focus our activities.
And are you going to any Bitcoin conference this year? Maybe in the Prague, I think. Or so. Yeah, right.
To Prague.
Yeah.
So everyone there, guys, I want to see you. Let's drink. See whatever you drink. I will be really happy to meet you. Yes, I'm going to be there, but also we do in different kind of mini meetings, in different parliaments in different countries. So follow my Facebook, Twitter, whatsoever, or just write me. And if you somewhere where I am, because we're going to also to Germany with different regulator there to explain the use cases of Bitcoin and stable coins for human defenders.
My last question is, besides that you're going to Bitcoin conference this year, what do you want to achieve in the Bitcoin world right now, especially with your foundation? Do you want to expand it, stay with that, or do you use other?
I want to expand. I want to collect as much as possible use cases. I want to bring as our allies as much as possible people from community, because as more faces, real case studies we show, as more comfortable and easy we do use cases, Bitcoin for everyone, it's better. We don't need to wait 30, 40, some kind of years. We just need to do it right now. We need to be with a legitimate right to use Bitcoin right now, and we shouldn't allow anyone to deprive us the right to use it, or to be in a gray zone. Why we should allow someone? We shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, that's the main thing, especially education, and you see some real use cases in Bitcoin. So Lyudmyla, I don't want to take more time to you. So thank you so much for your time and to speak out to us about what you're doing with Open Dialogue, and to meet you. It was a pleasure, and thank you for being here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you so much. And sorry because it was a little bit noisy while I was standing here in the corridor.
No, at all. I know you're working, so that's why. Okay. See you guys next week.
Thank you. See you. Bye. Thank you, everyone. It was us. Bye.